Hola, and welcome in again to another edition of Musings from the Mountains, our video podcast from WVSports.com. I'm managing editor Keenan Cummings.
I'm staff writer Patrick Kotnik.
Hi, thanks for joining us again. We are glad to see you. We got some things to talk about today, as we usually do. Going to talk some spring football, because I know you're excited for it. Going to answer some of your questions, and maybe make a bad joke in between. We'll see. Spring football. Let's jump into it. Should start here in the next 4, 5, 6 days. Haven't got necessarily a schedule yet, but will here soon. What's on your mind? What's on my mind? What's on his mind? I think...
Does it matter what I think?
Probably not. I'll try to talk over you. The first thing on my mind is, if you've watched this program, you already know the answer to this.
What is it?
You already know the answer to this.
No,
Don't ask questions you know the answer to. It's the offensive line. Can West Virginia fix it? How can they fix it? Are they ready to fix it? Can it be fixed? Fix. I start to sound like Bob Huggins.
Come on.
I don't know the answer to this, but I don't think it could get worse. West Virginia's probably going to explore the transfer market. More on that later. But they got to find some guys. Either it's going to have to be guys in the program that are ready to play. It's going to have to be either bring some guys in, some JUCO guys, maybe recruits that didn't play last year. Somebody's got to be ready because last year could not happen again. One of the worst rushing attacks in school history. And you lost your 2 tackles. The 2 guys that played the most on the offensive line are now gone. So you're going to have to replace them. That's my number one concern. Usually in spring, if you have a quarterback battle at all, that's the number one story for me. It's not even close. It's going to be offensive line battle.
Yeah, offensive line is definitely my number one too. I mean, the stat that I'm sure those who listen to this are getting sick of hearing, but last year 7 games of 51 rushing yards or less. I mean, that's bad. That's really, 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 really bad. So can they fix it? I mean, that waits to be seen, but I did write an article recently about the offseason, how important this offseason is for those guys already in the program that played, but that probably weren't physically ready, that how important this offseason was to just get bigger, get stronger, get more physical. We're gonna see that this spring. The spring's always a period where it's experimentation. As opposed to fall where they kind of know where their guys are in certain positions, but spring's all about experimenting. So curious to see what guys took advantage of the offseason, which maybe didn't. Are guys going to move positions on the offense line? I mean, that all waits to be seen, but I'm interested to see what happens there.
Yeah, and you'll get some help too after the spring. It's not a finished product; it never is. Maybe some additions, some guys coming in after spring ball ends. Tariq Stewart, for example. So you'll have some guys coming in that could potentially help down the road too. So if it doesn't look good in spring, which we probably won't see a lot to judge anyways, but if it doesn't look good, don't press the panic button just quite yet. Number 2 is what I mentioned earlier, quarterback. I do think on the surface, I've already made my prediction. Those have been wrong a time or two, but I do think that Jared Dagey is probably the front runner right now, and I would be surprised if he doesn't win the job. But really, and I'll have an article breaking this down this week on WVSports.com. If you go back and you look at the numbers for those two, if you take out, the obvious stats that make you realize that, Austin Kendall threw more passes or, played in more games, you'd be surprised how similar the final numbers really were between the two. So is Austin healthy? Is his hand ready? Does he want to compete? This could be an interesting battle. I don't think it's necessarily a slam dunk. Maybe it is. We do meet with Neil Brown here in a few days, and he'll give us the lowdown on that. But I'm interested to see how that battle turns out because anytime you have quarterbacks going at it, it makes for good journalism.
Yeah, great journalism. I remember we were joking saying that if West Virginia would have made a bowl game, obviously there was that question of whether or not Dagey would have played because he had already played up to 4 games at that point.
No way.
No, I don't think he would have played either. But if Austin Kendall would have played in that bowl game, they would have made one and lit it up. That would have made for offseason worth of quarterback controversy. But
could have made a Lifetime movie out of that.
Yeah, he's not wrong. But I think the assumption is, as of now, is that it's Daigie's position to lose right now. The starting job is his to lose. But I mean, you never know. There's questions about, is Austin Kendall ready to go? How's the competition going to go? It'll be interesting to say the least. But I think right now the assumption is it's probably Jared Daiggie based off how he played there in that final stretch when he was given the opportunity. Right now I would think that it'd be Daigie's to lose, but obviously we'll meet with Neil Brown and see what he says.
3 and 4 I'm going to mix together because it's kind of the same thing, just different positions. Bandit and cornerback. What happens there? Who emerges? And kind of go from there for 2 different reasons. Bandit last year was a hodgepodge, kind of trying to fit guys into spots they weren't necessarily ready to play. When they had a guy in Vandarius Cowan who did fit that role, he only played 2 games. I think he played 56 snaps, got hurt. Jared Bartlett took over at the end of the season. What's going to happen there? They have remade that position probably more than any position on the roster, not for spring, but for fall. They'll have 3 guys coming in that are body types that fit there, recruits. So that's going to help. But what's going to happen in the spring? Is it going to be Jared Bartlett? Is that going to be his spot? Is he going to move to another spot? Is it time for Vandarius Cowan to make up on the Blue Lot's promise that he's going to be the greatest player of all time? We'll see. Obviously, I'm joking a little bit. Really talented guy, looks the part. Can he put it together? And cornerback, a little bit different. They don't have hardly anybody returning. I mean, this is a position that, the 2 guys that played the bulk of the snaps are gone. Keith Washington, Akeem Bailey, they're graduated. They're gone. Nick Troy Fortune.
And Josh Norwood, too. He's gone.
Yeah, when they slid over there as well. Fortune played 300 some snaps, so he's the next closest guy. And then your list from there, you could have Alonzo Dye play there. He's played there in the past. The transfer from New Hampshire who set out. You could have Drayshawn Miller. He was hurt all of last year. Maybe he's ready to play. Tay Mayo. So
Corey Turner.
Yeah, it's Corey Turner. You have options, but none of them have really played extensively outside Fortune. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there and which guy emerges if they use a rotation. If they have more, because last year. And they talked a lot about using a lot of guys, and really they only used 3.
Mm-hmm.
So they've shown that if guys can handle it, they'll play. But I think you'd like to get more depth there in the Big 12. Although the league is kind of transitioning from the Art Briles days of spread you all the way across the field, throw it everywhere. It's more kind of ground and pound for most of the league. Final one for me, and Neil Brown will probably get mad at me when I ask about it like he does every time. It's punter. Who's going to punt for this team? It was one of my concerns last spring, one of my major concerns. That spilled over into fall, obviously. Ended up bringing in Josh Grouden. I'm not sure if they'll use one of their remaining scholarships on another punter. I mean, obviously, if they have to, they will. It's been proven that it works, but you got some guys battling for that job. Colton McGee, Evan Mathis. They're gonna wait for the spring, see how that kind of turns out. And with an offense that bogged down the way that West Virginia's did at times, you got to be able to flip the field. I think it's an important aspect to kind of have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going off that, Keenan, I'm going to go back to the Bandit spot. I mean, because that's for my storylines. I feel like that's like number 2 for me is, well, I would say number 3, offensive line, quarterbacks, and then the Bandit position. Now, just because, I mean, we've seen through recruiting already, as Keenan mentioned, that, I mean, they've already been recruiting guys who fit that mold, guys who fit that body type to play the Bandit position. So I'm really curious to see Vandarius Cowan, is he going to be the guy, or is it Jared Bartlett's turn? And just see where the other guys, fit along the depth chart. Guys like Linnell Carr, see what they fit. See what they fit on the depth chart as well.
Yeah, and you're going to have some moving around too. A lot of these guys can play different positions. But what you had to do there, and it's something that former coach who coached them, Blake Seiler, mentioned to me in interviews last year, is you can't just grow those guys on trees. You got to recruit them. And that's what they've done. They brought in some guys that might not be ready to make a splash immediately, but long term, you've got those rangy body types that can rush the quarterback and drop into coverage, which is a necessity at that position. That is the money-making position in this defense. But Koenig said it all year last year, we have pros to play at that position. And West Virginia didn't have that last year. So they think of what that could do to the framework of this defense if you are getting that type of production. Moving on. Enough about spring football. We'll have a lot about that coming in the next coming days. How about some questions?
Some questions?
Questions.
All right.
What kind of questions do you have here?
Number 1, biggest storyline for WVU recruiting heading into the spring cycle.
That's a little twofold action right there. I think it's for 2020, where do those remaining scholarships go? Do they use them Do they bring in guys? As I mentioned earlier, maybe offensive line transfers. That is one. And for me personally, I'm always kind of this way. Can you close on those guys that you've been involved with that have been your top targets? Can you get them on board earlier? And that also includes a quarterback. Can you get one of these guys you've identified early on board and in the fold? Because once you kind of get some of those guys, once kind of the dynamite's lit and everything's rolling, things tend to fall in place pretty quickly with recruiting. So those are my two concerns on two different fields.
Now, in regards to that, kind of a call out on Keenan here, but Keenan Cummings is breaking records for his slackness and producing a hot board in 2020. How does he feel about that?
I feel like this is abuse. And we've gotten to the point where I'm getting beat up about this. And guys, we are not even close to when I usually release this. The last few years, it's been April, May, late April at that, May. We are at the beginning of March. If you want me to put one out, sure, it's not going to be very good. It's not going to be very accurate. But I'll do it if it comes to that. But this Arby's type is just, it's abuse.
Another question, but this regards just the total production of this video podcast. What happened to all the slick production values we saw midway through football season? Now we're back to the cheap banner in Keenan's basement.
Well, it's not my basement, first of all.
Undisclosed location.
I like the banner. A lot of people don't. But hey, guess what? You're getting this information for free. Like it. But seriously, we are working on a few options here to get better equipment and to kind of up our game. Costs money to do this stuff, so hopefully we have some news on that soon. But we're excited that you are joining us and watching this because we want to continue to grow this product, and that only happens through you guys really giving us a chance.
There you go. There you have it. I believe this is the final question here about recruiting again. Do you think the coaches are heavily pursuing Crowder as their number one option now? As a few others mentioned, seems the coaches jumped on a Crowder visit for this weekend ASAP, and by Crowder, that is Will Crowder, 2021 quarterback.
I think this is just a staff that, I think a lot of people, I don't want to say you're misreading this situation because that's not accurate. It's hard to tell how things are going to unfold. Crowder loved his first visit in January. I think it's telling he's coming back. But this is the type of staff that wants to get kids on campus a bunch. They want to try to get them as much as possible to build those relationships, build those connections. It'll be interesting. Christian Veilleux, everyone knows him by now, the Canadian quarterback, has been kind of right there at the top of the board. He's going to Duke this weekend. Crowder's coming to West Virginia. Will West Virginia or will Crowder decide to make a decision? I'm not going to say it will because that's just me kind of speculating, but
never know.
I think the thing you got to keep in mind here, guys, is recruiting is a process, and you don't just take necessarily guys to take them. You want to be sure, especially at a position like quarterback. So if you see them act, if these two parties do come together earlier than expected, that's a sign that West Virginia wanted him because you're going to have to wait it out a little bit for Christian. He's told me he wants to take his official visits, wait a little bit till maybe towards the season. So he's got a little bit of leverage too because a lot of schools are involved with him, including West Virginia, Penn State, Duke, a lot of schools. So we'll see how it turns out, but I don't think it's accurate to say that West Virginia's shifted away from anybody or moved their board at all because that's recruiting. You got to battle for these visits, guys.
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia's trying to get guys on campus. Guess what? Every other school in the country is trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. That's all the questions we got.
Wow.
Old Keno.
That was fast. I went by it pretty quickly. But I do recommend, if you enjoy this video podcast outside of our banner, just please don't comment and talk about it. It hurts my feelings. I like it. It's actually not even mine. I talked about stretching it out. We'll get to that later. But subscribe. Go ahead, hit that button. Subscribe to this. We do this regularly. We have a lot of fun with it. Try to get you guys involved as well, answer your questions, Looking at a live element here in the future, which I think would be really fun to kind of have you guys call in and ask us stuff live. Put Patrick on the spot here.
There you go.
But we'll see what happens. I do want to remind you, got a promo going. Still got it going. Sign up for an annual subscription. If you sign up, the details right here in the link. If you sign up, $49.50 in West Virginia gear. You pay the price, you get $49.50 back in fresh new West Virginia gear. Spring practice getting ready to start. Come on.
We all need new gear.
What are you doing? You're watching this. Get on the Blue Lot. Talk to a lot of fans. It's a great community. One of the largest West Virginia communities out there. Very passionate fan base. And we're always on there too, taking your questions, doing that kind of thing. So thanks for tuning in. Well, we had a fun time with this. I hope you did as well. See you soon. Musings from the Mountains.